Welcome to Behind the Byline. I'm Savani.
And I'm Sabine.
We're the co-founders of Hidden Compass, and we're here with journalist Tulsi Rauniyar, who wrote and photographed The Lonely Kingdom, our human and nature photo feature for autumn 2022. Tulsi's story takes us to Nepal, to the remote Himalaya, and introduces us to the people who have chosen to stay and face a possible end to their way of life. Thank you so much for joining us, Tulsi.
Thank you so much, Savani, for having me.
So, Tulsi, this story is about a specific village in the Himalaya, but you describe the people who live there as corner people. Can you tell us what that means and why the stories of corner people matter?
Right, yes. So as I was traveling to various parts of Nepal, I came across this term being used a lot. And in Nepali, it's popularly heard of as kunako manche, which loosely translates to the corner people. And while I was spending time with various different communities from different corners, trying to gather stories and, document and photograph, I took notice of the term. And uh, to be to be not so vague, I'm sure there's not a proper definition of that term, but going about it conceptually, I would say corner people is a group of people who live in the margins in Nepal, and this is how they refer to themselves. And it encompasses anyone here who ekes out a rural subsistence and feels forgotten or almost beside the point.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great definition. And just to follow up, so I have a lot of ideas about why these stories matter, and we obviously decided to publish the piece, but why do you feel that the stories of corner people deserve to be told?
I've always wanted to write about the corner people, people who weren't usually written about growing up in the plains in the southern part of the country. I realized, people from the corners were not seen anywhere, not in the movies, books, or literature. And I've always wondered about how other corner people live. And the story of the corner people is also a result of that curiosity. So this is what drove me to The Hague, and I realized this story needed to be documented, the stories of corner people that were often drenched in poverty, underdevelopment, migration, loss of identity, history, where women were oftentimes left behind, and some men even. And these communities were often a microcosm of realities of what various cornered people throughout the country face. And um, yeah, and these corners were often distilled in life and slow death of culture, tradition of many communities across the country. So this is why I thought it was very imperative for me to work on these stories. Yeah.
I love that. And this is an important story. We've just been talking about some of why. It's an important story. It's a beautiful story. But Tulsi, I want to know what for you was the most rewarding part of working on that story. You may have started to answer that a little bit, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. What was the most rewarding part for you?
Well, I really like this question because this has been one of my favorite stories to write so far. And as a journalist and photographer, I was sort of, while doing the story, I was having a transformation about really what was this narrative that I was trying to tell, and why was it in this place, in this really remote and desolate corner of the country. And this was going to become a feature article at Hidden Compass and a documentary film even. And to reach there, it had taken me around 4 days of travel. And at the time, I was also feeling very alone since I was traveling alone, and kind of disconnecting from the original purpose of the story, and being on the road left me with a lot of questions. And when I reached the village, I knew I needed to make friends. So through conversations, through songs, through a willingness to overcome a barrier, and through a really strong desire at the time to understand really, like, how do I disconnect with my preconceived ideas of a narrative that I had formed living in the Tarai, living in Kathmandu, and how do I form a bond with the community, and how do I tell their stories as effectively as I could. And I remember I would go on a walk every evening, chasing sunsets, trying to spot snow leopards, taking photographs with the women of the village. And they would oftentimes also accompany me, and we would end up singing, joking, and sharing stories despite the kind of linguistic barriers we had, just being humans. And there was also a realization for me that media is really powerful, and being able to create a story and share a story about another place, another corner of the country that is often not represented is power. And I wanted nothing in those moments than to figure out how to share that power fairly. And so I took a lot of learning and took a lot of notes, completely falling in love with the process. And I think adventure stories are wonderful and they inspire us all. But personally, now being there in the village with those women for so long made me realize that my life's commitment would be basically to co-creating narratives like these with the people who are often the subjects and the inhabitants of the landscape in which our mainstream stories are told. And this process became primarily a lot about friendship and play, and recognizing that if I was, if I ever got an opportunity to tell a story about a friend, I would never tell it in a way that would harm them. I'd want to tell the story that was most beneficial for them. So these were some really rewarding realizations that came to me during the process of this story.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you put so much work into this piece, and what an incredible journey that you went on personally. I'm so glad that we, as an audience, as readers, get to go there with you and experience that place and meet these people. It's really a wonderful story. And so for those who are watching who haven't read it, you should go and read it right now, obviously, and admire the photographs that Tulsi also took alongside the story. For those who are new to Hidden Compass, we publish every piece with a patronage campaign so that you can participate directly in the partnership between us as a publication and our journalists, and our audience can jump in and support that partnership directly. 50% of the proceeds go to the journalists on top of their article pay. The other 50% go to us so that we can continue to publish amazing stories like this. So certainly consider contributing if you haven't. Tulsi, what would you say to folks who have already contributed to your campaign?
Yeah, I'm immensely grateful to be able to reach to places like they, to which not many people have treaded to and not even heard about such places, right? And the kind of stories that I have been doing more often than not has been a logistical challenge, and more often than not a disaster. The factors that make these stories of people of the corners what they are is lack of transportation, bridges, electricity, drinking water, no mobile network, no connectivity, nothing, right? So that also is a big challenge for me to sort of tread into their lives and create a story, live with them. And so appreciate every bit of support coming my way. And with the support that I'm receiving, I am pretty sure, fingers crossed, if I find other corner places and access to these places, will be invested into bringing more stories from these corners. And also as an independent journalist, these contributions also have become really crucial for me, because then I get to also have this sort of leverage to explore what I want to explore and direct where I really want to invest my time and effort in bringing these stories from.
Thank you so much, Tulsi, for sharing with us today, for your beautiful story, which is accompanied by your equally beautiful photography. And to everybody who is watching this video, go read the story, contribute to the patronage campaign, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.